Thank you. I now call to order the MWPA Executive Committee meeting of January 4, 2024. Hi, Megan. Martina, can you please call the roll to ensure that we have a quorum present?
Absolutely. Director Goins? Director Rodoni?
Present.
Director Hilliard?
Present.
Director Kurtz?
Present.
President McMillan?
Present here.
And that looks like everybody from the committee is in
Thank
attendance
you.
today.
Hi, Anne. Good morning. Agenda adjustments. I will entertain requests to adjust the order of the agenda. Any requests? Hearing none. Number 4, open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the executive committee at this time on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the committee. Please be advised that pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, the committee is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Please silence your cell phones during the meeting and mute your microphone when you are not reporting out. Martina, is there any public comment?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on items currently not on the agenda, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for anyone joining by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand or *6 to unmute yourself. And there are no hands for comment.
Thank you. Number 5, Executive Officers Report. Mark Brown will present the Executive Officers Report. Mark.
Good morning and Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back to after a month off of meetings for most of the MWPA. But as you'll see in my presentation here real quick, not everybody had the month of December off. We are in work plan development season now. So the ATC and the operations have both met, and I would say that they did a great job of continuing the momentum that they had from the 23-24 work plan development. That momentum has carried into the 24-25. Awesome engagement, some great discussions. I'm especially pleased with some of the strategic vision that the operations committee is providing, because each year we ask them to determine what the strategy for that work plan is, and the conversation that occurred, and I think the additions of some of the strategies that we'll be using for 24-25 is awesome. I won't daylight that yet, just because they still have some vetting to do, but I think you guys will be really happy. On the insurance front, if you noticed, the California Department of Insurance authorized the 20% increase of insurance rates for State Farm. 20% sounds large. I'm a State Farm customer, and I'll be honest with you, I'm actually pleased that it's only 20%. The more that I have been researching the insurance issue in California, Prop 103 did a great job of keeping insurance rates down for our residents. And while my opinion may be unpopular, this is what my opinion of it is that, well, this is an opinion. California has the lowest insurance rates in the nation, or amongst the lowest. And if you look at the risks that Californians have in their home insurance environment, it's amazing that we have the lowest insurance rates. So in order to make the insurance industry survivable, these types of rate increases are probably necessary. Some insurance industry experts were saying they think that the rates are 30 to 40% low. So when I saw an increase for 20%, I was actually pleased, knowing that more than likely I'm going to continue to maintain my homeowner's insurance. That's the downside. The upside with the approval of State Farms, and they're the first insurance company outside of the California Fair Plan, I believe, that's the CDI has approved the rate changes. With those rate changes also comes the discounts to go with safer from wildfire regulations. I haven't dug into what type of discount State Farm is going to be offering, but this is in alignment with how we've been managing our inspection program, is that we have been both negatively and positively documenting items that are within the California safer from wildfire regulations. That way residents can show that they meet some of these regulations. They can take their report and to their insurance company and be able to get discounts from the insurance company. So I would imagine we're going to start seeing CDI approving more and more of these rate increases, and perhaps And State Farm's been honest about this, and so some of the other insurers that stopped writing new policies in California, they said this is a pause rather than a permanent stop of writing new policies. So this type of increase for State Farm may lead them to opening up new policies again. We'll see. You see that the next item is planning for fire resilience in coastal Marin County. And you see a quick screenshot of the flyer that went out. This is in partnership with Cal Poly San Luis. They have a program where they are going throughout the state and providing training webinars and or in-person meetings. This is actually going to be a two-step process. This one for January 19th is a webinar. And it's going to be how we are planning for our work within the coastal zone and maintaining our environmental compliance in specific regard to coastal zone regulations. And we'll be talking about the work we're doing, but also a public works plan, which is part of the coastal zones process that Santa Cruz and San Mateo have really good PWPs that we're emulating to try to get approved for us. And so we're going to be bringing those folks into the conversation as well. Sometime in February, we're actually going to have an in-person training out in West Marin, probably in either Inverness or Inverness Park area, most likely Inverness Park at the top of Drakes View Drive. So we're super looking forward to that. I think I've mentioned to you guys before, but we actually now have dates on the calendar. Open Roads with Doug McConnell. It's a NBC show that he has throughout the Bay Area. He is doing an episode on the MWPA. He's also doing an episode on the Fire Foundry. And so we have been going through the scripting and not quite storyboarding, but outlining what our episode is going to look like. And we've identified March and April dates for the video work. And they look to air it twice, once in the end of May and once in August. So we'll be able to be right at the beginning of fire season and then somewhat in the middle of fire season. So we're pleased about the timing. We're pleased about the opportunity to have Doug McConnell talk about the MWPA. And finally, you may have noticed when you walked in, accessibility buttons on our doors. We've worked with Saris Regis in the County of Marin to increase the accessibility to our offices. For the offices next door, since it's a shared office with the County of Marin, they split the cost for the installation of the accessible doors, and then we're paying for the cost of these doors. It's just a continued effort for the increase of our access, inclusion to our meetings. This meeting space will likely receive some other upgrades to help those with hearing impairments. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Questions? Catherine.
Going back to the insurance. Okay, I just received a call from someone who is a friend of mine in Novato. She just got notified that she's going to lose her insurance. They're not going to write her insurance. So she asked me to ask you all, what can MWPA or Novato Fire Protection District do something to help her? She needs to tear down a juniper tree in the backyard. So question one was, can she get help through a grant from MWPA? And question two was, after she does that, is there a way for someone to certify that she's safer and maybe can get her insurance back?
For all the residents, the best solution is always to reach out to their local fire department for that support.
Okay.
And it's a common request from the member agencies. The grant access would be dependent upon, whether or not we have the available funding. But my third suggestion is, if she continues to have challenges, to reach out to United policyholders. They have a great resources to help people that are in those positions to help continue their insurance.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Bruce?
Yeah, Mark, this is unrelated to your report, but it is a question in regards to work coming our way. The Stanford project, which was to chronicle the MWPA story, we're in chapter 2, presumably. Would there be an opportunity at some point to give the board an update on the status of that project and what the focus will be?
Well, actually, chapter 2 is completed. We're just trying to find the right agenda space for the student to come and present. We do have it. If you want to watch a preview of it, we do have it up on our website under the news page. But we're just struggling with agenda time right now.
Yeah, no, good. I'm just real interested. Thank you.
And I have a couple questions. I'm wondering if you have any insight on what the magnitude of the discount would be if a home has been deemed to be meeting the wildfire program.
I don't, I'm sorry.
No,
I-
that's
I
fine.
need, it's one of those things where I haven't seen what the California Fair Plan right now are the only ones that have published discounts.
Hmm.
But if I had to guess, I would say between 5 and 15% if you have everything that's on there. It's supposed to be itemized though.
Uh-huh. Okay, that's pretty generous.
I could be wrong.
It sounds good.
With a 20% increase, a 5% discount would be better than nothing, right?
Yeah, but 15 is approaching 20, so
Yes.
that's getting to a sweet spot.
Yep.
And then with the open roads presentation, can we get a copy of that and put it on the website or Fire Safe Marin, or is that a copyright issue?
No, it actually, I can't, I'll have to double check if the whole episode will be available online. However, all of the material that is included in it is ours. So all the B-roll, all the other material is ours. And that's part of the agreement, is so that we have resources to use for continued display of what the MWPA is doing.
Mhm. It'd be great to have it available, his remarks and
Oh, yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay, public comment on this item, Martina?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the current agenda item, the executive officer's report, please raise your hand in the reactions or press *9 to raise your hand if you're joining by phone. And there are no hands for comment.
Thank you. Bringing this back to the committee for any further discussion? Yes, Catherine.
So 30 years ago, I worked with Doug McConnell. It was the opening of the Bay Trail, San
Oh.
Francisco Bay Trail. He's really great. He really walks through everything with you. He must be my age.
Yeah. His mind hasn't slowed down at all.
No, he's great. Thank you.
Great. Well, we're all looking forward
Yeah.
to that.
For sure.
Number 6, consent calendar. The opportunity for public comment on the consent calendar item will occur prior to the committee's discussion of the consent calendar. The committee may approve the entire consent calendar with one action. There's only one item on the consent calendar. Martina, any public comment on the consent calendar?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the consent calendar item only, please raise your hand in the reactions or press *9 if you're joining by phone. And there are no hands for comment.
Do any committee members wish to pull the one item from the consent agenda? We have a motion, please, to approve the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve consent.
We don't.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Number 7, action items. A, Defensible Space Alliance request for MWPA to employ 2 senior wildfire mitigation specialists. Mark.
Yes, and I'll go back a little bit in history, and that is in the development of the MWPA. One of the models that was explored and actually written into the JPA language was that the MWPA would actually employ all of the defensible space evaluators in the county. However, it was realized as we were writing the JPA that several member agencies may want to maintain their own inspection programs. And our departments, our fire departments have such a close connection with their communities. It made sense to do that. And then reality set in when the MWPA started and there were no MWPA employees. It was actually impossible for the MWPA to employ the D-space evaluators. Therefore, the opt-out is the rule rather than the exception. But knowing how the JPA language was written, we felt it was a good idea, and the board approved position descriptions for a senior wildfire mitigation specialist and then the wildfire mitigation specialist position. That way we had those position descriptions already written. We did that in February of 22. That way we were ready if our member agency said, actually, we want you to do this for us. At the time, we didn't do the salary survey because it didn't make sense to do a salary survey if we weren't hiring anybody. But now how the D-Space Alliance, which is Southern Marin, West Marin, and Central Marin, has grown in complexity and the work that they're doing. They're struggling with a little bit of workload piece with only one lead leading those 3 zones. They're also having some challenges with retention with the salary rates that they're able to pay through County Fire and or Ross Valley Fire, which are the 2 employers for the D-Space Alliance. So they reached out to us, and their formal letter requesting this is part of the packet for the MWPA to employ 2 of the senior wildfire mitigation specialists. The letter calls them leads. Semantics, right? When we did the position descriptions back in February of 22, we called them senior. So we have an ongoing comp comparison going on. We're probably 80–90% through that comp comparison. The holidays have slowed us down a little bit. But once we finalize that comp comparison, we will be bringing it back to the affected member agencies to see if that fits within what they thought would be the appropriate range. We're also having them compare what we wrote as a senior wildfire mitigation specialist to what they would like to see as the lead. And then their intent for funding of this is that they don't want to dip into the D-Space funding because that's going to be primarily for funding of the people doing the inspections and also some D-Space related projects, that they will create core projects within the West, South, and Central, prorated to the level of effort within those zones to provide the funding for those positions. If you recall, the Central Zone has been having a distinct core project to augment the D-Space program already. That just shows how much emphasis that they're putting into the D-Space program. And one quick note, while we don't recommend this at this time, there's actually an opportunity at 5 years for us to balance the 60–20–20 spread of 60% core, 20 D-Space, 20 local. And I know some people have actually talked about, I wonder if that 20 for D-Space is too small and if maybe we want to increase. We have to kind of balance that though, because as we mature as an organization, the homeowners are getting much more used to D-Space and valuations. And we've actually seen a trend already that's really positive. We have less findings now. As when we are returning to homes, we are finding fewer things. So that's great. So perhaps the workload will balance out and we won't need to increase that 20%, but we're also evaluating, well, maybe we become more detailed now with our evaluations and a little bit more hands-on. So we're still working on that. Part of this would also include an agreement between the MWPA and the member agencies that are involved. And it's a little bit odd since we're all part of the same JPA, but we think it would be best if we put it in writing, an agreement of exactly how the roles and responsibilities of these 2 positions, lines of authority, who's supervising, who's doing this. We want to make it perfectly clear. So when we come to the board, we would come with the full comp comparison. We would come with the proposed agreement. And then if there are no changes to the position descriptions, we wouldn't need to touch them. But if there's recommended changes to the position descriptions, then we would include those position descriptions. And when we originally wrote today's agenda, I thought we might be a little bit further ahead than we are. And so I think maybe a modified recommendation from staff on this is for the executive committee to vote to have us continue down the path that I've outlined to you to bring it to the full board in later this month.
Questions? Catherine?
I'm really glad you explained, who reports to who, because that was confusing to me. So does that mean that the 5 agencies that are in this alliance, the jurisdiction of the people we're hiring will stay within the jurisdictions of those 5 agencies only?
So it'll be a blend. So right now, Ross Valley Fire employs the lead. Marin County Fire employs the vast majority of the D-Space evaluators, with Southern Marin, I believe, employing 1. And that's their contribution to the program. The only thing that'll change is that Ross Valley will be removed from employing the lead, and the MWPA will step in to employ the leadership. 1 senior WIMS will be on more of the administrative side of the shop, and 1 of the senior WIMS would be more on the operational side of the shop. the inspectors themselves would still continue to work for the same member agencies they work for now. And then that's why we would need that agreement, since someone from the MWPA will be providing supervision from an agency outside of the MWPA.
Any other questions? Bruce?
No.
Dennis?
Thank you. That's okay. Mark, just looking at this item, wondering if this is a next work plan item, so it wouldn't start till next budget year, or is it going to be a mid-year adjustment?
Great question. It would be a mid-year adjustment since the inspection season starts before the next fiscal year. Based on the funding that we have from the Central Marine Corps project last year, we feel that between the agencies, we feel we have the budget space for that.
Anybody else? Bruce?
So Mark, I'm assuming that these would be FTEs, full-time positions.
Correct.
And so where I get a little confused is that all the members some members have a different model in regards to who the defensive space inspectors are and management, that the body of defensive space inspectors, I think in these zones that we're talking about are temporaries, aren't they? Aren't they seasonal inspectors? Is that correct? And so if you could just clarify for me, the supervisor, employee, and then the population throughout the year, and just how this is going to work, it would be helpful for me. Thank you.
So the current arrangement has some full-time inspectors, very few. Well, it was one at Southern Marin and one or two at County Fire. And then the lead position that's been employed at Ross Valley Fire has been an FTE. And so we would be just transferring that one FTE over into the MWPA with the addition of one more.
I was wondering if we are thinking about increasing the amount of money for defensible space, would that require an amendment to the JPA agreement?
Yes, but there's a clause in the JPA agreement that recommends that that evaluation at 5 years.
Okay, great. And then in terms of the new people being MWPA employees, do you and your staff have the capacity to supervise those people?
So not to add to Ann's workload, the two employees would fall under my supervision. And what we have done is that goal 1 is primarily Ann's responsibility. And then goals 3 and 5, for the most part, have been fallen under mine. And then we kind of share between goals 2 and 4. I can outline all the names of the goals if you like, but veg management, basically goal 1, goal 3 and goal 5 is grants and D-space. They have been falling under me. Public education, goal 4 has been both of us, and EVAC improvements has been, again, goal 2 has been the both of us. So we have, I feel that I have the bandwidth to be able to supervise the 2 employees. However, if the program expands beyond that, we may need a peer to Ann as a planning and program manager for D-space and grants.
Okay, thank you. And then perhaps when this item comes in front of the board, you could have an org chart that sets out how this is going to be organized to help people better understand it.
You bet.
Great.
I have one more.
Rachel?
So Mark, one more question. In terms of, these 2 positions would be shared within these identified jurisdictions, and then the other ones would continue with their current model. Does that make it basically equal, or does it offset? Will the other jurisdictions feel that they're not as supported in terms of their staffing?
I would surmise that the other 2 zones will feel no difference at all. All we're doing is transferring the leadership from the Ross Valley Fire position to 2 positions within the MWPA. Their sole focus will be just, Kathleen Cutter is the person that's in the position now. Kathleen is well integrated with San Rafael program and Nevada program as a partner. And I would imagine that a similar relationship would continue regardless of who their quote official employer is.
Right. So it's more of an administrative change than an actual functional change.
Correct. And part of it is to ensure that we can continue to retain the quality in the senior positions.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Bruce.
Office space, where will the position
We already
reside?
have the office space. They're down at Suite 270. Wouldn't
Here-
change.
Here in this office?
Yep.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. Sorry about that. And I'll add the office space piece to it as well, to the staff report.
okay, thank you.
Great. Martina, any public comment on this item?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the current agenda item, the D Space Alliance request for MWPA to employ 2 senior wildfire mitigation specialists, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining us by phone, please press star 9 to raise your hand, star 6 to unmute yourself. And there are no hands for comment.
Thank you. Bringing this back to the committee for discussion and a motion. Any discussion?
And if I can
Modify the motion.
modify the motion to being the vote to approve the staff to continue down the path that I've outlined with the salary survey, comparison of position descriptions, and a draft agreement to bring to the board in January 18th.
Do you think that'll be ready by January 18th?
I think
That's
so.
2 weeks.
I think we'll get there.
Okay. Okay. With that,
I'll move that
Thank you.
item.
Second?
great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 7B, approval of Genesis Protect EVAC, formerly Zone Haven subscription, including a traffic modeling component. Mark.
This is very exciting. And another example, in my opinion, of what the MWPA was created to do. I'm going to give a little bit of background again. When we started the evacuation ingress egress risk assessment, actually predating the MWPA, we thought we were going to need to create an evacuation management platform. But at the same time, the MWPA was being drafted in language, Zone Haven came about and created that evacuation management platform. So we were able to modify the evac ingress egress risk assessment to exclude that. And we entered into a subscription with Zone Haven in February of 21. Approved by the board, MWPA funding that subscription with the public safety agencies implementing the operational aspect of that evacuation management platform. We worked out a balance of invoicing for the MWPA to pay for the full invoice for everywhere but Tiburon and Belvedere. Tiburon and Belvedere has a separate invoice with Zone Haven, but it's a single countywide implementation, so the taxpayers don't see any lines of delineation. Subsequently, Genesis acquired Zone Haven, and so the product that was called Zone Haven is now called Genesis Protect EVAC. It was always Zone Haven's intention to add traffic modeling to their product, but it ended up being a very difficult challenge for them. And then a company called Ladris Artificial Intelligence, or Ladris AI, created a pretty phenomenal traffic modeling tool. At about the same time Ladris AI was finalizing their tool, Google presented a comprehensive traffic study for the city of Mill Valley. We even talked about that traffic study, both at board and the exec committee meetings. It was a very thorough article in the Marin IJ about it. And they learned a ton. They were able to modify some of their evacuation plans based on that study. One thing about that study, though, is a single snapshot in time. So that's the downside to that study. Since that study was publicized, we've had many agencies come to us and go, hey, can we get Google to do this study for us? And quite frankly, Google is not interested in doing that study for all the other communities in Marin, let alone everywhere else. And so that's when Ladris came about, and I was able to see a couple different demonstrations of Ladris, and I'm going to outline the demonstrations that I received to you today. We will have a full demonstration available for us at the board meeting on the 18th. And then Ladris started talking to Zone Haven. Zone Haven started working out an agreement, or not Zone Haven, Genesis started working out the agreement. And we went to the police chiefs. We gave a full presentation to the police chiefs. They immediately fell in love with it because we didn't want to embark upon this subscription if the police chiefs weren't interested in using this tool, because they're the ones that need to implement this tool. They fell in love with it. We gave a presentation to Office of Emergency Management. They loved the idea. It came to Advisory Technical Committee, went to Operations. They love it. Chief Navarro from Mill Valley, the recipient of the Google study, calls this the Google study on steroids. Chief Tubbs from Southern Rim Fire calls this the Holy Grail. And when we voted for this, Chief Weber didn't just say yes, he said an enthusiastic yes. Now, let me describe what this is. This takes all of the publicly available data. And what Ladris is super excited about is that we have some of the best publicly available data to inform this artificial intelligence traffic modeling tool. We take the zone haven or our evacuation zones that we have already created. It's embedded in there. Now we can click this zone, that zone, that zone, and say, this is the evacuation route or evacuation zones that are on our order. This is where we want them to go. And it can use lifetime data to say how long it's going to take to evacuate that zone. Or we could say, this is the 4th of July. And it'll tell us what type of evacuation times that we may have. We could say, all right, a tree just fell down over this road and has blocked this route. It'll tell us what it's going to take to evacuate everybody. So this is a planning tool. You can set up scenarios. You could say how many vehicles you anticipate, or we can use historical averages on how many vehicles you would anticipate per residence. It uses all the information that we have that's publicly available, how many residents there are, approximately how many people are in those homes. But where Chief Tubbs calls this the Holy Grail is that it also takes in lifetime modeling. So during an emergency, not only will we have the projected, but they'll be able to, the Ladris will takes into account the actual traffic that's going on during the emergency to give us ETAs. So let's say we chose, the incident commanders chose to evacuate 3 zones. And then we also have fire modeling saying the fire is going to get to these 3 zones in 2 hours. And we will be able to compare, all right, are we going to get these people out in time? It could help the incident commanders to modify their evacuation decisions. They may decide, you know what, we are on the right pace, or we may need to increase our pace of evacuate, because normally we'll stagger it. We'll do if the fire is coming this way, we'll do an evacuation order here, an evacuation warning, and then we'll move this one to an order and these people down to a warning. That will help us inform that, but it also will allow us to lifetime monitor the traffic so that we know where we have some trouble spots, where we may need to put some law enforcement. We would even be able to lifetime model, if using Mill Valley as an example, if we did contraflow on Blythedale, this is what the change is going to do. If we were going to do contraflow on 3rd Street in Santa Fe, well, 3rd Street's one way, so we can't do contraflow on that. How about Sir Francis Drake? So it's just a phenomenal tool. Stephen Torrance from the Office of Emergency Management has volunteered to be the primary driver of the implementation. Ladris has already reached out to us to set up a timeline for that implementation. And then the Operations Committee asked Chief Navarro if he'd be willing to give continual updates about the law enforcement implementation of this product. And he said, absolutely. The price tags looks high when you look at it. Our previous subscription for Zone Haven was $73,000 a year. That was 3 years ago. So if you look at the equivalent of that, it's $81,900 for what we had maintained. If you consider cost of inflation, that's actually a reasonable price. The traffic AI, the artificial intelligence for modeling, is another $126,000 a year, which seems like a big price tag. A reminder, this is completely within the guidelines of the MWPA's language for Measure C expenditures. And if you think about what a one-time traffic study like this would cost for just one community, it's far less than that amount. But this is an ongoing traffic study that can be done in 10 to 15 seconds for the lifetime of the subscription. So like I said, we'll have Leo Zlyman from Ladris giving us a live presentation. He doesn't just do a PowerPoint. He actually goes into the tool and runs through it. And then you actually see the lifetime processing that this artificial intelligence does. and 10 to 15 seconds is actually accurate. Sometimes it punches it out before he even has a chance to stop with his filler time that he's got going. It's a pretty amazing tool. And so the request from staff is that the executive committee make a recommendation to the full board that they approve the extended subscription.
Questions about this?
I have a question.
Rachel?
Is the Ladris component was the Genesis component, is that an add-on or is it all in one now?
It's an add-on.
It's an add-on. And are there other add-ons that Genesis is starting to look at?
Genesis actually has LRAD is now a Genesis product. An equivalent to Everbridge is a Genesis product. So they have a lot of different arms within Genesis. Yes.
Okay, so we're sort of, and we have some of those already. Or we only have
Well, we have LRAD
LRAD.
in some of our zones that we are funding, but the operational aspect of it transfers over to OEM.
Okay. So I'm just thinking maybe down the road, there would be an opportunity to look at all the different, because it sounds like everything's going under one umbrella of Genesis, that we relook at the full contract that we have with them versus all the individual pieces. It might be an opportunity for savings or not.
And yeah, I agree. We, if you saw the quote, we're actually getting a 30% discount on it, which is pretty phenomenal. I would argue that I forget what Genesis calls it, but the equivalent of Everbridge,
Mhm.
I don't feel that would be an appropriate MWPA expense, but if that could be, since it's all in one county, a way to create more.
Right, right. In terms of, one of the things we get a lot of questions about is residents wanting to do the evacuation practice. And will this provide us an additional opportunity? Because we haven't been really proactive in terms of doing the evacuation practice and for lots of different reasons. But one of the areas that I think that would be helpful to actually, if possible, to use this, and I know there's a simulation, but residents like to have the touch and feel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if there's a way of to actually do that, but also to give the first responders an opportunity, because to me, that's the practice that we want to see happening. And I haven't necessarily seen that as much in place as the conversation about the residents wanting to talk about the evacuation practice. So if this is going to provide an opportunity for us to explore that more.
Well, I think it the opportunity's always been there, right? It is just a matter of taking advantage of that opportunity. And think put my old deputy chief hat on and wanting to be able to see the lifetime aspect of it during an exercise. Yeah, that could be powerful and that could help motivate agencies to do that.
Mm-hmm. That'd be great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Catherine?
So thinking this out, this is kind of in perpetuity. I mean, once we get going with this, it's going to stay. So which means that we hopefully we'll have another proposition pass so that we can continue to pay, because the agencies will become dependent on it unless there's some kind of competitive function or, with Genesis, I guess. And what I'm saying is that I also serve on MIRA, and one of the problems is monopoly. So, so you're stuck with the system that you buy into because of the way it's set up. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. In this case, we're getting a 30% discount. We're on the innovative technology, but these are all things in the future that concern me. We need to keep it going for the agencies. And also, Rachel sort of hinted at this. Maybe in the future, there'll be another organization that could compete with them and, see if we're getting the best deal from the best contractor.
Yeah, and I'll fall back on my experience with Mira that the Mira system has a lifespan of so much more infrastructure than what this this would be a 3-year subscription. And right now, Ladris is the only artificial intelligence traffic modeling in 3 years at the rate of technology. Definitely could change. And the good news is the infrastructure behind this product is not like the infrastructure of Mira. So it would be relatively easy for us to transition to a competitor if they have a better product for a better price.
Anybody else? Bruce?
Mark, I find myself thinking, this is big stuff, and I'm excited about it. I think it's really important for us that we invested money in the ingress and egress study also, and we did traffic modeling. Was the Lazarus system the system used to do the traffic modeling in the ingress egress study, or?
So that's an awesome question. No, it wasn't, because it wasn't available. The traffic modeling that was done was for the evac ingress egress risk assessment was done by UC Berkeley.
Okay.
And with background traffic, average background traffic. So it's more of like the Google study where it was a single snapshot in time
Mm-hmm.
and assumed all roads were open, and where the Ladris product allows us to manipulate those scenarios and make it dynamic. And actually, in great segue, in February, we'll be bringing a proposal to the board. We're bringing it to the ATC in operation for tasks 5 and 6. If you remember, we put a pause in the evacuation ingress egress risk assessment after task 4. We are bringing a proposal for tasks 5 and 6 to the board in February that will include Ladris as a component in partnership with Sonoma Technology.
Okay, yeah, this is all new to me, and this is not my field of expertise, but it really, I think it addresses Catherine's questions in regards to who does this kind of work and what's the potential competition. Are we getting a good deal? But just as a practical, were they the same? And I'm asked a question which may or may not have any relationship to this, but in the ingress and egress study, we looked at notification, and we looked at dead spots, and if you will, within membership here. And we've got these two. I understand this project, which I'm supportive of, ingress and egress, and then the work that's going to go on with ingress and egress notification and addressing communications in those dead spots. Do we see these folding together here within this coming year, or within the next 2 years, to make sure that?
The task 5 and 6 component, yes, not so much the traffic modeling piece.
No, yeah, not the traffic modeling, but as
Yes.
to the notification piece,
Yes,
that this will circle around and sync up with this technology, with this.
absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's real important that we get, as we know from our ingress egress study, notification is critical early, and without, people can't act. So anyway, thank you.
I have one more.
Yeah, Rachel.
Mark, the timeline implementation? Sorry if I missed that.
We haven't built it yet.
Okay.
We're just started the conversation with the 2 implementers at Ladris. I've got them connected with Stephen Torrance, and so they're going to start working on the implementation timeline.
Are we thinking it's like, do we have a general, is it 3 months? Is it a half a year? Is it a year?
I think, don't hold me to this, but it's going to be on the shorter side than the longer side.
Okay. And are we the first agency to use this?
Through the Zone Haven, so or whenever I say Zone Haven,
Genesis.
insert Genesis Protect. Genesis Protect has become the sole distributor ongoing. We are the first customer through that avenue. However, there's about 10 other counties that have started using the Ladris product. And I actually had friends of mine who were in those counties where they were implementing, calling me up going, Mark, you got to get in on this. This is good stuff.
Great, thank you.
So I just have a basic question. How do they get the lifetime traffic monitoring?
In the same way you're Googled, same way, yeah, when you're going to a concert in the city and it tells you how long it's going to take you to get there, same data.
This is old stuff.
It could, and we did had this conversation back in February of 21 or January of 21. If we were to try to do a cost share, it would be really complicated to start working out what the percentage of time compared to a wildfire versus a flood versus a tsunami. And quite frankly, I was struggling with trying to realize what type of evacuation scenario would need this comprehensive traffic modeling. Earthquake obviously is regional, but we don't evacuate during earthquakes. We people shelter in place and then we move people around after the event. Flooding is far more isolated. Tsunami, again, far more isolated. If it was terrorist events, it tends to be more isolated. So it would be really hard to come up with a percentage, and staff recommends that this falls within the alignment of the Measure C language.
Any other questions? Okay, Martina, public comment on this item?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the current agenda item, item 7B for the approval of Genesis Protect EVAC, formerly Zone Haven, subscription inclusive of a traffic modeling component, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining us by phone, press star 9 to raise your hand and star 6 to unmute yourself. And there are no hands for comment.
Thank you. Bringing this back to the committee for final discussion. Dennis?
Thank you. Mark, remember in the staff's discussion, there was some discussion about sharing this with outside agencies other than JPA members. And I just wanted to float this idea, it's not part of the agenda today, is I think our members, our JPA members should benefit from the discount. But when we transfer that to other agencies, they should not. And I just wanted to place that seed that I think it would be appropriate that, we may charge the list price to anyone that wants to use the system that we've built, because the discount really should be for our members. So
Agreed. And it's like the original implementation, Tiburon and Belvedere will have a separate invoice, but a seamless implementation.
Any further discussion? Could we please have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. What am I?
Recommend.
Where am I? Receive report, provide feedback to staff and recommend approval, board of directors for the Genesis product.
I think it's to recommend that the board approve the Genesis Protect EVAC subscription,
Okay.
including the traffic modeling components.
Very good.
Thank you, Rachel. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 8, Board of Directors Agenda Review, the draft agenda for the Board of Directors January 18, 2024 meeting. Mark.
And as you can see, the agenda is a full agenda. So we will be working hard with all the people that are doing presentations to make sure that they're brief and that we can get this done in the 2 hours. Scrolling through the agenda, I'm going to highlight a couple things. We will be producing the annual report for the board's approval. I'll highlight some of the key points during my executive officer's report. But one thing I'll mention now is that we've hit the pace that we feel that we need to be at. In fact, we expended more than we took in 22-23. We were able to do that because of previous years' unspent money and also grant acquisitions. We have probably another year or two of unspent revenue to continue to expend. And I think it's important that we emphasize that we should be spending that money. We should not be sitting on that money. That is money that the taxpayers have said we want put towards wildfire mitigation. So it's the responsible thing for us to responsibly spend it. So we will continue to do that. If we are not successful in grant acquisitions, we're actually probably going to have to slow our work down a little bit in a couple of years, but we will continue to be aggressive with our grant acquisitions. Citizen Oversight Committee membership appointments. We have 3 positions that we'll be bringing to the board. We had 3 applicants. And as you see with the next agenda item, Lucy Dealworth, who filled the fire prevention role, chose not to reapply. So we'll be acknowledging her participation as one of the original members of the COC and also a member of the grand jury that helped craft our language. And the last item on consent is our master services agreement. This is a major streamlining effort. If you remember, we put out a request for quotes and proposals for various services, whether it was landscaping services, timber operators, herbicide application, restoration. And so we brought in, I think, 10 qualified applicants, put in proposals. We went through a grading process. We had different categories of what contractors' services they could provide. And so we'll be bringing the master services agreements to the board for approval. And this will allow us to quickly place contractors onto projects. I'll use the San Rafael San Anselmo fuel reduction zone as a perfect example. Instead of City of San Rafael going through the procurement process to put a licensed timber operator on that project, we've already gone through a competitive process. We will be able to place that operator right on to the project rather than San Rafael doing a procurement, paying the invoice, and then sending us the invoice so we can reimburse San Rafael. So we're super excited about this. And I know our member agencies are pretty excited about it. The finance report will be a combination of December and January, and we'll give her standard fiscal year work implementation plan. We already did DSpace, Genesis. Citizens Oversight Committee report, if you remember, in November, we presented to you and gave you the report at the exec committee. We had it on the agenda for the November meeting, but due to the length for the project-specific analysis for the San Rafael San Anselmo project, we had to move it from the November meeting to the January meeting. So all the recommendations that came from exec committee during November have been implemented into the presentation for the January. Oh, I skipped actually the presentation from the Wildfire Commission report. Thank you. This is the federal commission that we actually tried to get Bruce onto, but they didn't accept Bruce onto the commission, unfortunately. However, so this was a close to a 50-person commission looking at the wildfire problem throughout the nation. Very comprehensive report. I have written an executive summary that touches on the aspects of the report that I think are consistent with the MWPA's mission, and gave you a snippet of that. And it's still 8 pages of an executive summary. And with links and suggestions if you want to dig further into particular items. However, Chief Bob Roper, retired from the Ventura County Fire Department, who is a really good friend of Marin County, was a member of the commission. And he offered to give us a presentation from a commissioner's perspective. And he emphasized to us that at that commission, the MWPA was held up as an example numerous times, and this is a federal commission. So he's the one that came to us and said, "Hey, Mark, would you like me to come present?" So we had originally targeted November, but then the commission actually stole him on that meeting, and which ended up being a long meeting anyway. So that worked out for the better. So I'm very excited about that. And then the last one I'll mention for the agenda is we'll have Josh Dimon come and give an early preview of the results from the wildfire risk perception survey that we have been working with our community-based organizations, and the data and that we've received from it, and the dashboard he's building from it. And the dashboard's pretty incredible. You'll be able to pick different questions and then also pick different demographics and see how they answered those questions. And we have Josh giving presentations to the ATC and ops as well, with the request that they use this information to help frame projects for the 24-25 work plan. And then we are also going to be using, we as MWPA staff will be using that data to help create a project that's going to increase our outreach to our underserved populations, and that and directly reach out to our community-based organizations and ask them to be partners with us in that implementation of that type of project. What it looks like yet, we are not 100% sure, but we're earmarking a project for that based on the preliminary results.
Questions about the January 18 board agenda? Rachel?
I'm wondering, that's a lot.
I know.
I'm wondering if we need to set the expectation that either the meeting might go longer than the 2 hours, or we start earlier, or I don't know if there's a way to, I think the being realistic, we're not going to get through that in 2 hours.
So one question for you is, do you think the board would be comfortable with the DSpace conversation being a consent item? Or do you think it needs to be a full presentation?
I think it's fine on the consent.
I do too. And if someone has questions, they can pull it.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that would be one way to shorten the meeting.
Great. I think that's important.
And I think informally, we can try to map out the time of each item to ensure that it is from 3 to 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Public comment, Martina, on the January 18 board agenda?
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the January 18th Board of Directors agenda, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. And there are no hands for comment.
I was just thinking, Mark, when you were mentioning the Federal Wildfire Commission report, it might be great to have someone from Jared Huffman's office listen in to the presentation.
Yeah.
Great. Any other comments, Bruce?
Yeah, just in our startup meetings over the first couple of years, we had several meetings that went over, and one of the rules that we came to agree upon is that to ask presenters not to repeat what's in the packet. And so I think a streamlining suggestion would be, for example, the Fire Safe Marin reports, they're beautiful, you know, and they're clear and concise, that we really don't need to hear it again. So I would just think that, you know, that we would look to please put in the packet that which is in print, and then let's ask presenters not to perhaps just ask, are there questions or comments from the board, as opposed to reiterating information that the board has presumably already read.
You
and the
bet.
public.
You bet.
And the
Thanks.
underlying assumption of that is that it means that each board member needs to do the necessary work
Absolutely. I
to
think that's
read
one of
the
one
packet.
of the premises of
Yeah.
our presence and participation.
So maybe we need to reiterate that, you know,
When we distribute the agenda packet, we can remind folks of that.
yes, we're not going to spoon feed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those
And-
days are over.
And I intend to send the executive summary for the Wildfire Commission report probably a week or so in advance.
Mhm. Great. Okay, any other comments? Number 9, committee members' requests for future agenda items. Anything? Number 10, adjournment. We will now adjourn the meeting, and I look forward to seeing you all on January 18th. Thank you.
Thanks for attending, Megan.
Well done.
Yeah, Megan, thank you. Thank you.
Happy to.